Hello everyone, it's Daz, and this week's discussion is over record flooding in the Midwest and some consequences from it. 25 states are being threatened by flooding, according to federal scientists, and at least 3 people have died from these floods. These floods have caused many towns to evacuate, destroyed more than 2,000 homes, and many are stranded. According to the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration, Spring Outlook says nearly 2/3 of the lower 48 states are at an elevated risk of flooding until May. Rapid snowmelt from the bomb cyclone in February, spring rain, and ice melt is expected to prolong and expand flooding in the Midwest and the southern U.S., according to the NOAA. It's already sent some rivers to record levels in the plains and Midwest, including the upper Mississippi and Missouri River basins in parts of Iowa, Minnesota, and Nebraska. Excess water will flow downstream through the river basins, worsening the flood threat and causing it to become geographically more widespread. To add insult to injury, much of the nation will likely receive above average precipitation, and since soil moisture values already rank among the top 10% for this time of year in the central and eastern states, this will add to the problem. The areas under the highest risk of moderate to major flooding, according to the NOAA, are the upper, middle, and lower Mississippi River basins, the main stem Mississippi River, Red River of the North, Great Lakes, Eastern Missouri River, Lower Ohio River, and Lower Cumberland River and Tennessee River basins. And there's even minor flooding possibilities for a large swath of the U.S. east of the Mississippi River, as well as portions of California and the Pacific Northwest and Great Basin regions. In Nebraska, President Trump has already declared a national state of emergency, and some consequences from this have to do a lot with agriculture. For those who are familiar, much of our farming and agriculture is based in the Midwest, and I like to thank some of you guys who've checked up on me and asked if I'm alright. I'm alright. I'm a little south of what's happening, but I am concerned since I don't live too far from the Missouri River, but I think a lot of it's going to stay concentrated in the north and probably on the other side of the state in St. Louis. But Nebraska Governor Pete Ricketts has called the flooding the most widespread destruction we have ever seen in our state's history, and Iowa has more than 100,000 acres of farmland still underwater. Keith Glewin, an educator at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, stated, "Chapters in books and entire books will be written about in reference to the Midwest March flood, and it is estimated that there is $3 billion worth of damage, which in the insurance industry is often referred to as an act of God. Flooding has swamped fields and stockpiles and drowned or harmed livestock in Iowa, Nebraska, South Dakota, and other states. In Nebraska alone, there's been the loss of crops and livestock, which is estimated to total around $1 billion, according to Reuters. The floods have damaged roads, bridges, and railways farmers rely on to move their products to processing plants and shipping centers. It's such a major blow to the U.S. farmers and is likely to have national consequences." Democratic Party Jane Fleming Cleave tweeted to the News Food Economy, "This will impact food on your table." And the number of farms that have filed for bankruptcy last year rose by 19%, the highest level in more than 10 years. Further, incomes from farming have fallen by more than 50% because of a global glut of grain. Reuters reported, "To make matters worse, a trade war with China has meant the country has stopped importing U.S. soybeans. Many farmers have stored last year's crops of grain and soy in hopes of better prices, and now some of these stores have been destroyed by flooding. I've never seen anything like this in my life," Winslow, Nebraska farmer Tom Geisler, who lost 2 storage bins full of corn. "We have been depending on the income from our livestock, and now all of our feed is gone. So that is going to be even more difficult. We haven't been making any money from our grain farming because of trade issues and low prices. To make matters worse, there's also been a loss of animals or livestock from these floods." U.S. Agriculture Secretary Sonny Perdue told reporters that the governors of Nebraska and Iowa had told him that up to 1 million calves have been killed. Hog farmers in Iowa were also flooded, according to the Associated Press. Pets have also been caught up in the flooding. Rescue Lieutenant Jamie Mitchell of Waterloo Fire Rescue told Reuters the number of animals rescued from homes in Waterloo, Nebraska included 87 dogs, 8 cats, 1 rabbit, 2 birds, 2 hamsters, and 26 horses, but even animals who survived may have health problems because of the ordeal. Standing in the cold water and being cold certainly isn't good for the health of the animal, Nebraska cattleman spokeswoman Talia Goes told Reuters. According to the current Food and Drug Administration policy, grain inundated by uncontrollable river or stream water is considered adulterated and must be destroyed. Flood-damaged grain is adulterated grain because of the potential for many contaminants to enter through the water. This grain should be destroyed, never blended. And the recent Food Safety Modernization Act has increased public awareness of food and feed-related hazards. So, when you consider just the fact that these floods are affecting a lot of local farmers and it's causing them to have to get rid of their crops because they're now considered contaminated, livestock is being destroyed from these farms, this will have far-reaching consequences even for those that live on the west and east coast far away from the Midwest. And I do see this being something that could cause a famine over time. I already think about how there's been some damage from the government shutdown in January of this year, and we're seeing just so many catastrophic events economically that if you're not paying attention, could easily be overlooked, especially if it's not in your backyard. It's too much to just see it as a coincidence. And I'm going to read a few more quotes from some articles and from some figures that work for the NOAA, but according to Ed Clark, director of NOAA's National Water Center, this is shaping up to be a potentially unprecedented flood season with more than 200 million people at risk for flooding in their communities. The flooding this year could be worse than anything we've seen in recent years, even worse than the historic floods of 1993 and 2011, said Mary C. Erickson, Deputy Director of the National Weather Service, in a conference call with reporters. And to make matters worse, some farmers have blamed the construction by the Army Corps of Engineers, saying that their systems of dams and reservoirs are more for protecting endangered wildlife than actually looking out for their best interest, and this has led to a lack of preparation for these sorts of floods. But when you consider just everything that's happened, it's just made the situation ripe for more catastrophic consequences. But I like to know what you guys' thoughts are on these floods. Do you see these floods as something that is gonna fade over time and it's not really gonna have a far-reaching impact? Do you see this as something that will affect our economy as well as our agriculture and it could lead to famines? Do you see this as an act of God or judgment? Or do you see this more so as more weather modification or just as something that's just happening? Of course, scientists are going to say this is a result of climate change, but I'd like to know what you guys' thoughts are on this matter. Let me know what you think, and I hope you have a good rest of your day. Take care, and God bless.